I moved to Colorado on May 19th, got ran over by a truck September 29th.
What? You got ran over by a truck?
Yeah. I know he's not a presser. I'm going to smoke this, right?
Sure.
I cleaned the first rep, threw it up overhead, no trouble. Grabbed the second, the clean, went to press, and I heard a pop.
Yeah.
And as I, it was a pop, and then I was in the dirt, and that was the end of it. If anyone's ever heard a ratchet strap break, that's what it sounded like. My son said he could hear it in the stands.
Welcome to the Shaw Strength Podcast. Today I'm joined by my good friend Steve FOTION, and we have talked about doing this for a long time. Actually, like
A long time.
Yeah, a long time, and it's always been, hey, we'll find a good time, or it'll work out. And a lot of times, if you guys have watched some of my training videos, some of those things, you probably have seen Steve make an appearance. He's come down
Once or twice.
Trained with me for a long time, man. But anyway, it's good to have you, brother.
Well, it's great to be here. It's probably been 10 years coming back and forth, right?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say we probably met in 2011,
Yep.
around that time, because you came down, and I don't know what I was thinking, putting on a amateur strongman contest right before World's Strongest Man that year, but you came down and saved the day.
It went great. It went really good, right?
It did actually. We had a lot of good competitors there, but you coming down, and it was like one of those things where you don't realize how much help you need until it's in the moment.
Until you need it. Yep.
Yes, and then you're there, and it's like Steve was just, I don't think you stopped moving, man, like the whole day.
I think that's when we had hung out a little bit at the gym before that, right? Maybe one or two times.
I don't
training.
think so. I don't think so, because I think when we got done with that day, you're like, hey, would you mind if I came down to the gym once in a while? And I was like, dude, if you're going to work that hard, like during the contest, I was like, you can come anytime, man, if you're going to help and act like that. Cause I don't know. And I don't know how I was trying to think with that introduction, how that even happened.
That was Sarah from Strongman Corp.
That's right. Cause she came to sanction the contest, right? Yeah.
Because I said, hey, I'll do whatever. I was literally just learning strongman at that point, and I was doing everything I could to get better at it.
Yeah.
They're like, well, Brian is putting on a show. I'm like, I'll volunteer.
Yes. And we needed him.
I don't think I even talked to you before I got there. I think we met there.
That was it.
I think in 11 we had met at Parker Days. That was the first time I met you.
Maybe that's right.
That's when we first met, was at Parker Days.
Yeah.
That was a great contest back then. That was a lot of fun.
It was. Yeah. Colorado Strongman back then was kind of, there was a decent amount of stuff going on,
especially in the Denver area, right? And Cheyenne, this whole Front Range was booming.
Yep.
And now it's even better. It's an even bigger community, stretches down to Colorado Springs.
Yeah, it's grown. Well, it's grown and grown and grown, which is cool too, man. So let's talk about. I want to talk about a little bit of your history, right? Because you've been into a lot of crazy stuff.
Oh man,
like over your life. But I think that it'd be fun to just kind of introduce that, man.
Oh my God! But where do we want to start? I have been competing in strength sports since high school. So that was like the early 80s. I did my first powerlifting meet.
Okay.
And that was AAU back then. There were no trophies. There was no, it would show up to a gritty gym, squat, bench, and deadlift, and
that's
see
it.
What the heck happened.
Yeah.
And then literally before then, though, let's go back to the beginning. I built with my best friend my first weight bench at 14.
That's awesome.
From Sports Illustrated, little 2x4 article in the magazine said, this is how you do it. We built the first weight bench.
Wait, there was directions on how to build a weight bench?
Out of 2x4s, absolutely.
That's wild.
And then my buddy's parents bought that Weeder plastic.
Yeah, I had some of those where they were like the plastic outer shell. And
absolutely. The best part of it is I bought one of those later on in life at like 15, and I still have it.
Do you?
My sister has it for her boys stored in their barn.
Okay.
It went from me to my brother, to my brother's boys, to my sister, to my sister's boys.
Interesting.
And it still is completely intact, and actually grew in size because as everyone got stronger, they would yard sale and collect concrete, DP, or Weeder weights.
Sure.
My goal is to have that one day hanging from the ceiling in a gym.
That's cool, man.
Right?
Really, really cool. The thing is with something like that, like you have different things through your life that have meaning in a lot of different ways. And for you, that would have a lot of meaning.
Huge.
Exactly.
Huge.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah.
When my brother still had it, I've been in Colorado now like 30 years. I left it for him when I left in 89, and I never knew what would happen to it. Then I found out that it still existed and had gone to my sister and her boys. I'm like,
and where is it at now?
It's in Whitehall, New York.
New York. Okay. Okay. So it's being stored there for you.
One day I'll bring it back here and hang it from the ceiling in the gym.
Love it.
Put all the weights on I think there's like 230 pounds of concrete weight that you can fit on one of those little bars.
Yep.
And that's all it takes.
Isn't that crazy, man? It's so fun to think back. Like not a lot of people now will realize that, right? That's kind of because it was just like the basement or whatever. Like
it was in my bedroom.
Yeah, it's beautiful
on the third floor.
See, that's great. So where did the infatuation with that start? Like where do you think it came from? Like at that age, like 13, 14, 15?
Well, I was a scrawny little kid who worked my butt off. Wasn't afraid to hard work, but I was bullied a little bit, and a bunch of my buddies were bullied, and had a rough childhood. And it was like I needed to be stronger. So it was like, okay, let's get stronger. My buddy Keith said, hey, look, here's an article in Sports Illustrated. Let's build this.
Okay.
So we built it, and we started out in his basement. You know, I'd ride 2 miles up to his house. Every Saturday we'd work out.
That's awesome.
And then the school that I grew up in, high school in Windsor, Vermont, changed their gym. They got all new equipment. And probably 7th grade, I discovered the weight room. And then it was game on. It was like, gym, where can I go to train?
Yeah.
You know, and back then it was so cool because it was like dungeon-esque. We had blue and brown Nautilus stuff back then.
Yeah.
You know, you don't even see the brown stuff with the white pads.
Yeah.
Amazing. Met a guy who was a power lifter. I think his name was Lauren Chapin. He was like 113 pounds, could deadlift 600 pounds. He was a little guy, wiry like anybody you've ever seen, strong as an ox. Met his coach and was, let's do this.
So that's how you got into powerlifting.
Yeah,
then.
that's how I got into powerlifting. And at some point I saw an article of Arnold, probably from Conan. And I remember this vividly, standing in a mirror as a little kid, wanting to have a back like a cobra. You know, like Arnold, when you do lat spread.
Yeah.
I did that probably before I was 10, going, I want to have, you know what I mean? I was little. It was like, I want that big back.
Yep.
And that was one of those inspirational moments or periods in time. Keep training your back. And when I remember specifically, I think I was my 3rd or 4th bodybuilding contest. It was here in Colorado. They said front lat spread. And literally there was like 7 or 8 of us in line. It was an amateur contest. All the guys in the line turned around and looked at me in my lat spread.
That's awesome.
And I won I won the show.
There you go. Well, I mean, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Not a bad thing.
It was, never forget it, because literally, I think the picture in the newspaper was literally me in a lat spread and 2 guys going, you know, jaws dropped looking.
Sure. That's awesome, man.
My legs were garbage, but my back was huge.
Sure. That's all right. Hey, if you're winning it, you know, I mean, it's neat to, you know, get, I guess, infatuated, right? Drawn into that at a young age. And then you start to envision what could you look like and what do you want to look like? And then, you know, you go down that path, right? And start to open those doors. And then it's like, all right, well, now you're actively competing in powerlifting, getting into bodybuilding. Like it's a interesting path, man, but also you probably learned a lot about discipline and setting goals and hard work and all of that.
Huge about the discipline part. Was my family life as a kid there was no structure at all, no boundaries, no nothing. I established those as I grew up in the gym. You know, I played racquetball and I lifted weights. That was my escape, you know what I mean? But I knew that I needed to be strong to take care of myself, protect other people, and it literally grew from there.
So when you started lifting, like you're saying, okay, I got bullied, my friends got bullied, whatever. Like when you started lifting, how long did it take for that to kind of stop, or you to gain the confidence in yourself where that kind of went away?
I would say less than a year.
Okay.
You know, because I ran cross country in like junior high, and I was fit and I was strong, but I wasn't strong. You know what I mean? And once I became strong, and the confidence that came with that was crazy, because my demeanor changed, and it was like, you're not going to bully me anymore, and you're not going to bully my friends. I remember in 6th grade, great story. We lived literally, my backyard was the grammar school. So we would walk out the front of the school, around the corner, and come home. There would be kids hanging out by the fence to bully us and whoop our butt.
Yeah.
You know, hey, hiding behind the fence before I go home.
Yeah.
It wasn't 7th grade. That stuff all stopped.
That's awesome.
It's like, we're not messing with you. You know, we got bullied. There was a little period, my best friend and I, Brian, got bullied a little bit. But once I started fighting back and getting a little bit of an upper hand, or just standing up for myself, it just kind of stopped. And bullies, if they can't get on top, they don't want to fool with it, or they don't want resistance to begin with, right?
Yeah, yeah. Just a little bit of resistance can go a long way. I would agree.
It didn't take long at all. And then I didn't play sports in high school because I was in the gym. None of the guys that played football liked me because I was stronger than all of them.
That's crazy. Why no sports?
I didn't like the attitude.
Yeah.
I didn't like that arrogant, you know, I'm part of that football team, I'm better than you kind of thing.
Yeah.
It turned me off bad.
Really?
Really, really bad. And I think it was part of the culture that we grew up in, because
Did any of your friends play, or?
Some of them did,
Okay.
some of them didn't. But where we grew up was really like blue collar, white collar. So there was a big disparity between neighborhoods. And we grew up in a really nice neighborhood, middle class. But some of the kids just had an attitude. And it's funny now, I look back, and I've gone back and I see all those guys are like big, fat, out of shape. You know what I mean? Never really went anywhere.
Sure.
And I just flat didn't want to be a part of it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I was pretty independent and self-reliant. I didn't need a team kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I played soccer later on in high school, and that was a lot of fun because I could run. I got an engine that doesn't stop.
Sure.
And
sure.
could literally go and go and go and go. That was fun. So where was I going? I don't know.
Well, just talking about like not being part, like you were lifting, and the guys like on the team were kind of like, hey, you know, you're stronger than us. I mean, at that point in time, were a lot of the football players or other athletes lifting, or they were just playing the sport?
I would say a fair amount of them, because we got a brand new gym
Okay.
when we got into high school, because our basketball court faced the wrong direction. It didn't go north, south, or east, west, whatever it is. So they literally rebuilt the whole thing, gave us a new gym, and off we went. So we got all new equipment at that point.
Yeah.
And I was in there on a regular basis, and I liked it. They didn't necessarily not like me, but they wanted me to be a part of the team.
Yeah.
But I didn't like that. I still don't like the cliquey kind of mentality.
Sure.
You know, and there's a bunch of that in bodybuilding, which is kind of weird, but it's still an individual sport that you're responsible for your own actions and your results.
Yeah.
You know as well as anybody, when you're in a team, no matter how much your effort is, if you got somebody who's not pulling their weight, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Win as a team, loses a team.
Right.
Like, and it's a tough one when, you know, again, when you are, say, working harder, or you go out and have a great game, but other teammates of yours didn't have a good game, or, you know, and that also can flip too. It's like maybe they had a great game and I didn't play as well as I should have, and I kind of, now you put that burden on your shoulders where the team lost because of you or whatever. And it's a different, I mean, obviously if you have a good team where everybody's bought in, it's wonderful, right? Like, it's,
for sure.
I mean, that's it doesn't get any better than that, because everybody's got everybody's back, and you understand where your role is and what you need to execute for the win to happen. But it's also, there's a lot of beauty in individual sports where you can only look yourself in the mirror, right?
Oh,
so
for
like
sure.
have an experience with both of those. I completely get it, man. So like you get done with high school and you're just rolling with the lifting then.
When in high school, I'm like, I want to be a physical therapist. I became infatuated with strength and the body and movement and what it was capable of. And it was like, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to be a PT. I want to be a trainer. I want to see wherever the hell this thing takes me.
Yeah.
Got out of high school, joined the Army. Actually joined the Army before I got out of high school. And then it really took off because I went to basic training, I got in shape to go to basic training, and then was in such good shape, I actually was able to go to the gym while in basic training in AIT. So I spent my junior year and my senior summer in the gym training and getting stronger. And it was nuts. So that was like 85. Got out, applied to college, went to Keene State, wanted to be a fitness trainer. I went, fitness management was my goal. And it's like, okay, do this and then figure out where it takes me from here, which is how I wound up in Colorado, because I was almost done with my degree in fitness management and said, CU has a PT program that I want to be a part of.
Okay.
I need to go to Colorado, but I don't have any money. My parents don't have any money. I'm going to move to Colorado, get my residency, go to CU.
Okay.
I moved to Colorado on May 19th, got ran over by a truck September 29th.
What? You got ran over by a truck?
Yeah.
I mean, we're laughing about it. This is not really that. I'm sorry, that kind of came out of nowhere.
It is funny though.
Yeah.
We were, my roommates and I, horsing around, fishing, goofing, not drinking beer, just goofing off. And my roommate, I was chasing him with mud. We're literally covered in mud. We've been fishing all day, having fun.
Okay.
We're 21 years old, something like this, being dumb. He was jumped in his truck to get away, but it was in reverse.
Oh, boy.
With the wheels turned to the right. And I was at the driver's side door reaching in, smearing mud on him, and the truck's in reverse. So the fender hits me, knocked me down, sucked me underneath the car, blows my knee out.
Oh, crap.
So it's like, that was the first time I remember passing out.
Yeah, that would be a lot of pain. That would be a lot of pain.
Hour later, we drive down from the top of the mountain, go to the hospital. I walk in the hospital. I didn't walk out because my knee was junk.
Yeah.
I had no idea what it was. Then Wednesday went in. That was a Sunday. Wednesday went in, got it fixed up, and they said, "Oh, you'll never lift, you'll never ski." And I want to say that was September, and that February I was skiing.
Wow.
And then so that would have been 89. I think 90. I was back on stage competing and won the Western Colorado bodybuilding contest.
That's crazy. So did you end up going to CU at all?
No, I didn't. No.
So you got to Colorado and then that just didn't.
The wheels came off the bus,
Okay.
so to speak,
Yeah.
when I got ran over, because then I was out of work for 7 months, trying to figure out, okay, now what do I do?
Were you working in fitness or a gym or something?
I was
like that?
I was doing construction and I was a personal trainer.
Okay.
So I was doing, and it really kind of pushed me in that direction because I couldn't do construction at that point, but literally I would crutch to the gym every day and train people and then crutch home.
That's awesome.
I lived like 2 miles from the gym, maybe a mile and a half, something like that.
That's a decent trek on crutches.
It was a hump.
Yeah. That's wild, man.
Yeah, but it made me so much stronger. And it's like, let's go back a little bit. I was in Colorado, no money, no insurance, no backup plan. So it was like, okay, do I go home and live with my parents or do I figure out a way to do it here?
Yeah.
So it was like, I'm not going home. That was,
Anything.
No way in heck are we turning around. We came here for a purpose. We're staying. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I think I worked at 2 or 3 different gyms. I volunteered at first because I'm like, I need a gym. I don't have any money.
Sure.
I need to do rehab. And the car insurance paid for the surgery. The car insurance paid some of my salary, took care of me. But it was still one of those things, what do I do with all this time?
Yeah.
So go into the gym, worked out, trained with people, really developed a good community that was in the town of Carbondale, Colorado, and which is where my gym is now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
And I still see some of those people. There was no way I was going home, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
My roommates decided to move into another house. Well, we went from a 3-bedroom to 2-bedroom. So I'm like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
One of the guys at the gym said, I own a house. I'll rent you a room.
Okay.
Perfect. Literally, it was closer to the gym by like quarter mile or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. Not having the option to fail made me succeed.
Just had to do it.
There was no way around it. Without a safety net, failure is not an option. And
Absolutely.
that's how I made it through that.
Yeah.
And then So that would have been 89, 91. And when I was in college back at Keene State, my roommate and I had a plan. It's like, we're going to graduate. We're going to own a gym in 10 years. We want to open a gym and have it. 20 years almost to the day I opened my gym in Colorado. It took me an extra 10 years.
Sure.
But it was one of those deals like, I came home from work because someone was closing a gym. Asked my wife, I says, hey, what do you think about opening a gym? She says, why? I says, because I just bought one.
Yeah. Ask for forgiveness and not for permission.
And she says, what do you mean? I says, well, the gym down the hill is going out of business. They're losing their lease, and all the stuff is basically being fire sailed.
Yeah.
I says, I bought it. We don't have a space. We don't have a plan, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's how my gym was born.
That's crazy, man. But so you're into this whole time, like, were you mainly focused on the bodybuilding then through the 90s that time? Or was it?
It was bodybuilding and football and fitness, because I was kind of all over the map. The bodybuilding was fun in the late 80s and 90s, but I felt it was really, really subjective and what's the word I want? Self-absorbed.
Okay.
I didn't like that attitude at all. So I had started reaching out. I was doing trail running races, this and that. And someone said, you should come play football. And they were guys from the gym.
Okay.
Said, hey, we got a sponsorship. You want to play men's football? I'm like, I'll give it a try. I went out and I fell in love with it. Because
so from not playing in high school to playing.
I played 13 years men's flag football, full contact.
Interesting.
And we won 7 championships in 13 years. We were, when you were saying a team wins or dies, we were such a tight group. You could take any one of us out and put someone back in, plug and play, and we would still be
that good.
Very, very competitive.
What's full contact flag football? I don't think I've heard of that. Well,
that's back when you could block downfield. It was full. It was everything short of tackle.
Okay.
And they've since toned it. When the league first started, it was brutal.
I bet. Yeah.
And as it progressed, as people got hurt and dinged up, the rules got tighter and tighter. And, it went from 11-man down to 7-man. And then basically it was just, playing catch.
Sure.
And it was no fun. And it's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah. No, that's wild, man. I didn't actually know you did that.
Oh, it was
13 years of that.
13 years. Well, and it was, the bodybuilding was getting boring. The football, we got into strongman because football was getting boring.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's like, I need a new challenge. So it's like, what am I going to do next? Already had the gym. Went, let's do strongman. We live in the Western Slope. There's not a strongman gym for 150 miles.
Nothing.
I called over to Denver, made a few contacts, reached out to a couple people, got a call back. I think I found it on the internet, actually, with Strongman Corp. Got introduced to Tyler, drove to Denver, trained with those guys, and I was hooked.
Yeah.
And it was just game on from there.
Had you seen Strongman before, or was it just like...
Everybody saw Strongman in the 80s. Bill Kazmaier on CBS was just like, Magnus Samuelson.
Sure.
That was awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was so small. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It was just a little microculture of what was out there back then, kind of like bodybuilding.
So what year would this have been then?
That... Probably 07 or 08, I think.
Okay.
There was we still played football while we were starting out the strongman, trying to figure it out. I built my first Atlas stone out of a yoga ball that I covered in fiberglass.
That's awesome.
And then cut a hole in it and made it, because I didn't know that they made Slater molds back then. I had no idea.
Yep.
But I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to make an Atlas stone. Made a 200-pound Atlas stone on my own. It was it was game. I still have it.
The only guy that I've ever heard of doing that is Dave Oslin.
Oh, no kidding.
He did that with I think it might have been a yoga ball too, and he just did made the mold himself.
Yep.
And then poured the thing and but he was super into stones. But it's early on, and that would have been or probably early 2000s. Like it just wasn't readily available. And then once you could get the molds and stuff, it became a lot easier.
Oh my! Well, and now I have every mold that there is.
Yeah,
except for the 24, because I think that's just crazy.
Yeah, 24 is pretty nuts, man.
You know, you have to be a giant human being to get to that.
Yeah. No, that's it. So you were just kind of like, hey, I'm interested in this now. Football's kind of winding down. We'll get into it.
Functional strength.
Yeah.
What I found about it, you know, from football and bodybuilding and all the other crazy endeavors I did, being functionally strong is beyond compare valuable for life as doing anything, right?
For sure.
You know, whether you're helping somebody out who's got a flat tire or somebody's pushing somebody around in the alley, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, big guy like you walk up, you're just an imposing human being where things stop.
Sure.
You know, us normal folks, it's like if we can't defend ourselves, somebody challenges us, we have to act, right?
Yeah,
and be able to act, right?
Yep. No, it makes sense, man. So you're getting into that like 2007 time frame. Where did things go from there then?
Up.
Yeah.
The gym, the football, our team and my gym exploded. Absolutely exploded.
With
there
strongman.
Well, we were the only, there was other gyms, but nothing like what I had and what we have. We created a culture, you know what I mean?
Yep.
With energy and enthusiasm and equipment that people hadn't seen before, because I was going everywhere.
Yeah.
And it just kept growing, and the football was good. And then when we brought strongman in, there's a big community of rehab, recovering addicts up where we live, which is literally across the street from where my gym is. So those guys all would come over, and I would say, hey, let's see if we can trade one addiction for another. Because there's no question that you and I and everybody in this is addicted to the iron, right?
Yeah, of course.
You know, I can't function if I go too long without training.
No, exactly. You got to. Yep.
And showing those kids that there's another way to get that endorphin release, have fun, make progress. We got more and more of those kids, and truly, there's another gym in our town now that's opened up by one of the kids that went through my gym through that program.
Interesting.
You know, so it's like
kind of like
it's
a full
still
circle.
Growing. Yep, absolutely.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah,
so you get the strongman bug, and it's like getting into competing. How was that different than anything else that you had done? Different. Only because it was a different sport. You know, I'm like that intrinsically motivated kind of person. Yeah. I want to challenge myself, and it doesn't matter who's out there, what is out there, who I'm going against. We looked and we found the Parker days, and it's like, I think I went down, here's a dumb thing, and don't ever do this. Talked to Sarah, came down to Colorado, volunteered to help at Parker days, but also competed. So set up the, first contest, I think it was 2011 or 12, maybe, might have been 10, I don't remember. Literally volunteered, drove down early from the other side of the mountain, 3-hour drive, unload the truck, trailer, set up, compete, and then broke it all down, drove home. That's wild, man.
So that was my introduction to that. And it was like, here we go. And on the way home, it was like, hey, let's never volunteer to help a show that we're competing in.
No, not a good idea. Yeah. I would echo that for sure. It's a lot. I mean, the competitors show up, and a lot of the heavy lifting, so to speak, is the setup.
Oh, for sure.
The resetting, the breakdown, the getting it out of there, and I mean, it's a lot of work before and after, for sure.
The guys that put on the show carry more weight than any of us competitors even think about doing in a day, right?
Yeah, 100%. That's cool, man. So you're at that point where you completely like gung ho.
I was hooked. There was. I think I finished 13th out of 13, but I also didn't. I was 40 something years old at the point. There wasn't a Masters back then.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
So you're just competing.
I'm just like, we're going to see how this goes, and by God, I need to get stronger.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do remember specifically is being a bodybuilder. I had a really tiny waist. I think I started strongman with like a 29 or 30 inch waist.
Crazy.
Because bodybuilding wasn't conducive to have a big wide structure. No. It was more of that V taper that we're looking for that symmetry.
Yeah.
That really hurt me. But now I think my waist is increased immensely.
Yes.
But now I can carry a yoke without even think about it. Back then it was like a belt, another belt. Can I wear another belt?
Sure. Let's stack them up. Let's stack them up. Yeah.
But now that was the big change. And once I realized to give up on the bodybuilding, put that aside, because I really had a hard time bodybuilding training versus strength training is way different.
Big time.
Complete. And if you're started it, I started in the gym, but then it was a little bit of powerlifting kind of as a novelty, but then it was bodybuilding, trained for bodybuilding, very specific, very, very controlled environment, not necessarily about the weights, really about a feel, right?
Yes.
Strongman, move the weight.
Yep.
And move it as well as you can and don't get hurt.
Exactly.
So with a little bitty narrow hips and little waist, not conducive.
So they had to just build it up.
And that's what we did. It was like the first time I carried a yoke, I thought I was going to die.
Yeah.
My neck hurt.
It's a
my
different
knees
feeling.
Hurt.
It's a different feeling for sure.
It was, my traps never hurt so bad after the first time doing farmers and yokes. I mean, oh my God. And then it's like, chiropractor, what did you do?
Sure. Oh yeah. Yeah.
He said, why are you carrying 400 pounds on your back?
Yeah.
And now, 400 pounds is warm-up weight now. You just go, whoa.
That's normal. Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's a new stimulus, right? Like it's completely new stimulus, and the way you had been training doesn't work for that necessarily. So it's adapting to the new stimulus.
Yep.
And then your body grows with it. I mean, the more that you train and now it does become normal, right?
Yeah.
Like, like that's a beauty of it is, what are you training for? And then, trying to make your body perfect for what you're training for.
Yeah, adapt to that next task that is required. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So like with bodybuilding, you couldn't have walked in there with a strongman waist, right? Like that just wouldn't have worked. And
not be great looking, you know what I mean?
No.
Because it's just, it's blocky. We've seen it. You know what I mean?
Yep. And that's just naturally what kind of happens. And that's why, a lot of people out there get confused with the type of training, right? It's like you're going in and lifting weights. So there's a lot of different ways to lift weights. And what are you training for? What's the outcome that you want? Yep. And so then that dictates the type of training you're going to do and all of that, which is fun too, right? Because you can transition, like just what you're talking about. It's like, well, some of the stuff you're doing for bodybuilding or then for football or for strongman, like it's all training for a purpose.
Oh, for sure. And it's fun to have those different environments that you're training for because it keeps it exciting. You know what I mean? I'm one of those guys, if I'm not challenged, I'm bored.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And quite frankly, I'm in that position now because I'm not training for anything. I need a target. Yep. I need a place that's way out in the distance to aim at and be going for.
Yeah.
Because last year we moved the gym into a new place, had lots of changes in life. And I was like, going to the gym, and my wife says, how's your training going? I says, I'm not training. I'm exercising.
Yeah.
And there truly is a difference because you go there, for the endorphin rush and to move some weight, but without that purpose that's driving you from the back or pulling you from the front, it's a different mentality.
Big time. When you're going in there with something you're going after versus just going in and saying, hey, I'm going to enjoy this workout and get it done. Like it's just a different, and for certain people, that's totally fine, right? Like they just go in to work out and move some weight and get a sweat going and move some blood around, and that's the end of it, which I think has a lot of value as well. But for different people, when they're wired that way, they need that goal. They need something to be working towards.
The carrot or whatever.
Yes, that's what it is. And it's you can cut it however you want, but that's a motivating factor big time.
Oh, no question.
For a lot of people, right? And especially people that are coming from any type of athletics at all, or they have done, bodybuilding where it's like, hey, I'm going to get on stage. Well, guess what? If you're going to pull all your clothes off and get on stage, you better be ready.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, and that that's looming. Or when you enter a strongman contest, the date is going to come where you're going to have to, it's going to be a pass or fail type of thing, right? You step out there, you can either do it or you can't. And that's a big motivating factor for a lot of people because once you put your back against the wall, it's against the wall. You got to fight your way out of it.
It's
right?
either do it or success is the only option, right?
Yes. Yep.
No matter what the outcome, if you get out there and do it, you've done it, right? Yep. And if you're prepared for it, the results should speak for themselves.
Yep. No, it's neat, man. It's like that mentality change. So, you come in, and I'm sure people will be curious about you coming down, because it's not like you moved, right? So you come over, you help with that contest I was putting on. Then you come down, and at that point we were in the storage condo, is where my gym was. So you come down, like, and that was probably every month or something.
Yeah, probably. It started out like once a month. You know, I'd get lucky enough to come down and meet you guys on a Saturday, and frankly, I lived for those weekends because I trained myself and had a group up in the mountains, and we were good and hard workers. But when you train with the best of the best, it forces you to bring your game up. There's no weaknesses. There's no slacking. You can't hide in a corner. Mm-hmm. It's like go or go home. And I know you, if I hadn't been, I wouldn't have been invited back.
Yeah.
Right?
It was, and at that point, like the group, like the competitiveness within that group was exactly that. Right. And it was, you know, I mean, and it's just like a good team, just like what we touched on before. It's like a good training group, even though it is an individual sport. If you've got a great training group where everybody's accountable, everybody's raising the bar, everybody's bringing good energy, everybody's contributing. I mean, this is one of the most beautiful things that you can have, really, right? Like, and then people come in, and when you would come, you would only bring more to that.
Yep.
Right. So it's like you're adding to that environment, and everybody was there. But it's you know, one of those things. And I had a lot of guys that came in that just wanted to, you know, kind of talk the talk but not walk the walk. Yep. Right. Like, so it's like when the rubber would meet the road, oh man, you know, my leg kind of hurts today, or my back's not feeling great, or whatever. And it's like, why does that only come up when it's going to get
got heavy? Or hard.
Or when you had to do something that was uncomfortable for you. But like that, I took as a that was going to make me worse. Like if I had anybody that thought that way, where they weren't going to attack their weaknesses, it was going to make me worse. Mm-hmm. It wasn't going to help me get better. So I didn't want those people around me, right? So like that gym, that was the mentality, right? And it was a high standard, very, very high standard to get in the door. And you know, it was we were there to win. Yep. That was it, right? Like everybody
and get better,
and get better. Yep. Yes, yeah. And so, you know, coming into that, like those days were brutal. Like the training, you know, it's just, that's what it was, you know. But that's where you needed to go to win.
People think of brutal as being bad. I think it's brutal as awesome.
It was awesome
because it's really hard right now today, but the benefits that you reap on the other side of that are enormous, right?
Yep.
I mean, you can't get better without getting a little bit beat up. Mm. And you know, if you're never sore, you're never beat up, are you really pushing it?
The entire time, pretty much the entire time with doing strongman, there was a good level of soreness that was just there.
Right.
It was kind of constant, right? It was like, well, if I trained, I know I should feel like this. And if I didn't feel like that, which very rarely happened, I knew that I didn't quite push as
you
hard
had more
as I
in the tank
to.
that you could have given.
Yeah.
Right?
And then there was days where you are really and truly too beat up, and you do need to back off a touch, right? But you kind of learn through doing when that limit is being reached. Right. And so there was kind of like this ebb and flow of, yep. I know how far I can go. I know how far I can go in a workout. I know when mentally I'm being weak and physically I can handle more. And then you kind of lean into that and do some type of different challenge. And this was, you know, something that would happen fairly often, to be fair, within training, right? Like, and I'm sure you remember some of that with like the kettlebell swings, right? Like something. And I mean, I did that at certain points. I remember, and I don't know if you were down for this day, but there was a day after I had my I had tore my bicep, so I was in my, you know, brace or whatever. Yep. And I'm saying my right, it was my left that was torn, but it was like one of those things where it was like the energy was crap. Right, the training was crap, and I was still in the gym training.
I wasn't there.
No, so well, one of the days I got, and this would happen, dude. It was one of those days where you could just tell it was off, right? And it was like, I was like, well, if it's off, so that kettlebell was 106 pounds, right?
Yep.
And that was what we did. So it was 100 swings, as quick as you could get there. And then everybody just got in a line and did it. And so, like
did
that
you do
day,
that? Did you do that multiple times?
oh, a lot of times.
Because I remember one
you
time
did
for sure. Oh
yes.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You were there. That was probably after we moved to the other.
That was at the other house.
Yeah. But this one I did with one arm because I did my bicep was, and I was like, you know what? Like we have to change the energy. Like, and sometimes it was just that. It was like everybody's either dragging or not bringing it or going kind of through the motion. So it was like, hey, you know what? Time for kettlebell. Put it out there. Let's go. Right. And it was just like, but that was the thing is it really pissed me off because even though I was wounded, if you will, like we're still getting better. So it's like, I'm going to swing. I'll do all my swings one-handed, right? With the 106 instead of two. And I told everybody in there, I'm still going to beat you. I'm going to beat you one-handed because this is what's going to happen. And I didn't but again, the way that would go, and you can kind of talk about it because you thought the same way as me, but it would not stop at 100. It just kept going. So it was like, you're going to go another round. I'm going to go another round. Right. Like, so basically until you can't walk.
It's like, if you're going to do good, I'm going to do better. And then you're going to do better. I'm going to, until somebody falls.
Yeah.
You know what
and
I mean?
that was the environment, right? Like and whether it was that kettlebell or it was sandbag over the bar or like it was a lot of stuff we would do as a group. And it was a kind of, can you top this? But not just physically, mentally, right? So it's like you're getting in this deep water where it's like, all right, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out of this, right? Like, so it's like, well, but if you're going to go, I'm going to go. And then it's like, it's not going to stop. Like the bar is going to keep getting raised. There is no limit. There's no limit to what's going to happen. And when you're in a group like that and you have these, I love that with the strongman training was like, can you top this kind of thing, right? So because it keeps me sharp, right? Because it's like, well, if I'm going to be the best, I better be able to beat everybody, And so it's like, well, if somebody else is bringing it, you better step your game up because it's got to get better, And I think that was the beauty of it, and the commitment. Like the thing I think that was always like something for me with you was like, people are so unwilling now to go commute to train or commit to train to go. And it's like, you're literally driving like, what is it? 3 hours one way. So like, if people that are listening to this, like let that thing sink in. You're getting up in the morning, driving 3 hours one way, training for some of those training days were 6 hours, maybe
marathons,
like big time, whole training day. Then, eat or do whatever, then get back in your car and drive home. So it's 6 hours of driving, 6 hours of training, maybe even more training, plus some talking time and hanging out, eating, whatever. So this is like an entire day.
It's a full day.
Big time, right? But that was not like that happened once in a while. There was times where you started coming every single week.
And then twice a week.
At certain points. It's like that's what it turned into. But that type of commitment is rare, unbelievably rare, right? Because most people won't even go 30 minutes.
Right.
They wouldn't even be like, hey, I'm 30 minutes away.
If you're more than 7 minutes away from the gym, people won't go there.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. If it's more than 7 minute drive, they'll find an excuse not to go to the gym.
One of the earlier gyms, you never came to the gym when it was in Windsor?
No, I sure didn't.
So that I got that space for free, but that was not quite an hour one way for me to get there at the point, because I was living kind of in Thornton in that area. So to get to Windsor every single night, but it was like didn't matter if it was snowing or raining or cold, hot. You know what I'm saying? I'm going and I'm making that trip. And there was a few hairy trips, man, where the road, like I was one of the only vehicles on the road, and it's like it's not good, but I'm making it to the damn gym. If I have to sleep in the gym, I don't, but it's like that type of a commitment.
Well, you were driven, just
very
totally. You were like, I want to see how far I can go with this, and I'm willing. Driving a car to me is a piece of cake.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's a means to something greater.
Yeah,
and to be honest, this wasn't the first. Once you and I met and I started coming down here, that was fantastic. But in the '90s, I used to drive from Glenwood to Aurora to train at Better Bodies when I was bodybuilding, because that was the environment that was required, that in my mind was required to get the results, because I could train by myself. I literally trained in a room for my first bodybuilding contest in Colorado in a gym no bigger than this room we're in right now.
Interesting.
But on Saturdays, I drove to Denver and
crazy.
trained at Better Bodies.
Huh. And would you meet people there?
Nope, nobody.
Just the atmosphere.
Just the atmosphere. The atmosphere and the machines was enough to draw me in. It was like, okay, this is where I need to go. And I'm sure there were other places.
Yeah.
I don't even remember how I found out about this place, but I was like, okay, that's right. And once I was in there once, it was a done deal. It was every chance I had to get, or that I could drive to Denver. I would drive down, train at Better Bodies, and go home.
So you trained by yourself?
Trained by myself, yep.
That's great. And was it just because obviously you said the equipment environment, but I mean, did it fill you up? Like, what was the, like, as you're coming down, it's like, all right, I'm going to have a great workout probably.
Yep.
But did it say, hey, this is motivating to me? Is it inspirational to me? Like, what? Why go that far?
Well, because where I was training, there was nobody that was as committed to me or with the goals that I had. So basically, I was alone on a desert by myself, training up in the mountains, which was great because I don't need any of that.
Yeah.
But if you want to get better and you want to get pushed to the next level, it's like you better put yourself up against somebody else, and you see these guys that were just freaks down there then. And I'm just like, oh my God, I need to work harder.
Sure.
When I was at Keene State, my first bodybuilding contest, we trained out of Kidder's gym. Karen Kidder, he was one of the first people to squat 1,000 pounds in the state of New Hampshire and Florida. When I was working at his counter in his gym, he used to call me skinny. I did my first bodybuilding show. He no longer called me skinny.
That's awesome.
It's just one of those little things. He's like, these guys were freaks. Yeah. I mean, monsters. Mr. New Hampshire trained there. Karen and some other big monster powerlifter dudes. I mean, they were huge. This was back in 88, and they were behind the neck pressing 315 seated. You know what I mean? Awesome. That was just, we're talking monsters. And I was just a scrawny little kid.
Sure.
Just trying to get by.
Yeah. But you're in that environment again.
But doing a contest, I earned their respect. Yeah. And that was, I didn't necessarily need it or didn't know that I needed it, but it was certainly gratifying on the other side of that.
Yeah. It's always the environment you can put yourself in, right? Like the people you surround yourself with are going to bring you up or bring you down. Right. So I think that there's a lot of, value and I think, for me, I always wanted to learn from whoever I could. And it was the same thing. But I would travel, not all the time, but when I could, I would travel to especially once I started getting a strongman, I tried to travel to certain guys that I knew had more knowledge than I did, knew technique better than I did. Because again, you're trying to pave this way with somebody that's kind of figured it out or
learn from someone who's already tried it, right?
Exactly. Yep. So you try to get into it and learn what you can. And back then information was not as readily available, and now it's questionable, some of the readily available information, whether it's good information or not, but you can get information. You still yourself, I think, need to go through a little bit of a trial and error type of thing, as you're trying to find your way and get into it. But, I think one of the takeaways is, if there's a will and your will is strong enough, there's a way.
Absolutely.
Right? You can make a way to do something. It's just being willing to get uncomfortable. You have to be willing to get uncomfortable with your situation, step outside of your comfortable surroundings and go do something that's a little bit uncomfortable.
And as well as anybody, we like that challenge, right? What you were talking about was the mentality in the gym at the storage, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't always about strength, physical strength. It was about mental strength.
Big time.
And the best part of coming down here was that in my area, there's nobody that was going to push me mentally harder than myself. I mean, I could break myself by myself.
Yeah.
But in a group, it's like if you study draft horses, a draft horse by itself can pull X, right? Another draft horse by itself can pull X. You put two draft horses together, they'll pull X times 3 because they're driving each other. And that was the mentality in that storage, is because I couldn't compete with anybody in the gym as far as strength.
Yeah.
But effort, my mental toughness, it's carried me through more of craziness in my life
Yeah.
than anyone could ever imagine. And I don't know whether it's just a result of all of the little things that you got to overcome, or if it was born that way, or what it is.
Yeah.
But the world today lacks mental toughness, everywhere you look.
Big time. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I'm sure you might agree with this, but I think that discipline needs to be trained.
For sure.
Right. So, even now I'm talking about, some of those times, and I'm thinking, okay, well, I make myself do hard things on a daily basis just to challenge myself and to keep that sharp. But also I probably have to admit at that point in time, those types of challenges and things that we're doing, like my discipline was probably stronger even then. Right. Like, maybe it's more refined now where I don't question it. I just do it because it's been built.
It comes natural now because you've that rock solid foundation.
Yeah, and it's not
developing.
It's not like if you threw a challenge in front of me now that I would back down from it, right? Like that's definitely not the case. But it's like that. There's something special about that type of environment, and also the mental discipline, but also just the mental strength is probably the best way to put it. Like you're very strong mentally, so you're comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Well,
right? Like,
but that, and you and I, when we're mentally strong to begin with, so we'll push to that 90. We live in that 90% zone, right?
Sure.
And for me to go to 100%, I'll go to 100%, but more often than not, 90% is more than is ever required.
Yeah.
But if I get around someone who's going to push a little more, I've got more. And our CNS says, okay, we need to go a little deeper. We can go deeper because, and you've heard me say it a million times, there's always more.
Yep.
I think I'm at 100%. You ask me to give another 2%,
I'll
find it.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and that's what it is. I think, for you, I want to talk about one thing, as you were getting into the sport, like some of the, the challenges you've had, and a big one, and I think this is something, we should talk about.
The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room, man. It's like this, like crazy injury, right? Like competing in strongman, and you were doing an axle, right?
Yep.
So axle, we'll talk. I don't want to.
Let's go back to, I think I was 50 something years old, and I wanted to see if I could get back into bodybuilding, because that's how this all started.
Okay.
It was like, I'm going to do a strongman contest in February, and then in August, I'm going to do a bodybuilding contest.
Yes, you were.
So that's how that happened. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It was one of those, I'm going to go from 240 down to 190, back up to 235.
Sure.
All in a calendar year.
Real quick.
But the bugger of it was COVID hit in the middle of that. You know what I mean? So I competed in May or June twice, did very well. And then started training for Strongman Corps Nationals. COVID hit, got postponed again. So I had been training from January for about a Strongman contest, which happened in February. That was over. Yeah. Time to trim down. June, August, then go back, put the weight on and get strong.
Yep.
COVID hit and stretched out. So I was training like a wild man from February to December of that same year. And then the Strongman Corp Nationals got postponed again.
That's right.
Until January.
Bump back.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was running hard and heavy way too long.
Yeah.
Is it my own fault? Sure. Would I change anything? Not a chance.
Yeah.
I would do it all over again, hope for different results.
Yeah.
But if they happened again, it would be, I'm okay with it. I went into that contest after winning 17 and 18 with all intentions of winning another national title, right?
Yep.
That was, I said, I'm either going to, I think I told you this before I left, I'm either going to win or I'm going to break, or someone who comes in better than me that wins earned it.
Yeah.
Because I had missed nothing.
Yeah.
First event went off. It was a deadlift challenge. And frankly, the only other 50-year-old guy who was a competitor is a deadlift specialist. So we deadlifted head to head, and he beat me by one rep. It was like 600 pounds in a lever deadlift.
Yep.
And he ran out of gas. I worked the whole minute till I was dead. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And then the next event was axle overhead press. Everything felt great. Warm-up was fantastic. I'm like, I know he's not a presser. I'm going to smoke this, right?
Sure.
I cleaned the first rep, threw it up overhead, no trouble.
Yep.
Grabbed the second, pulled up the clean, went to press, and I heard a pop.
Yeah.
And as it was a pop, and then I was in the dirt, and that was the end of it.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, obviously, big pops and big problems.
Well,
yeah.
If anyone's ever heard a ratchet strap break, that's what it sounded like. My son said he could hear it in the stands.
Yeah.
And I knew at the very instant exactly what had happened. It was like, crap, my day's over.
Yeah. So you ended up tearing
both quad tendons, completely ruptured. So all three heads were disconnected from the patella on both legs.
Massive. Yeah. Both legs.
Total junk.
Yeah.
Game over.
Yeah. I mean, you knew like at the moment when you went down, like once you kind of,
I knew what the injury was.
Okay.
I knew immediately what it was. And I'm like, crap. And my first thought was, now, how do I take care of my family? My second thought was, I let down Brian. I wanted to win so bad.
Yeah. Well,
and I called you from the floor, I believe.
I know. Well, people, I think when it happened, like, cause I was paying attention too, like what was going on. And I can't remember who it was that sent me something and said like, man, Steve went down. I was like, oh, cause my heart just sinks. And I'm like, okay, hopefully it's not bad.
Right.
Like you don't want it to be bad. And then it was very
It was
bad.
the worst it could be.
Worst
it could be.
And then you're trying to figure out like, from there, the where are you going to get it fixed, right? Like
Right,
and what, getting out of the arena. I mean, it turns into a big problem. It's much, I don't want to say better, but in a way kind of better if you do one leg.
Oh,
because now you got crutches, you can get around. Two, you're done. That's it.
You're done.
Yeah.
Well, the funny part of that was, I think I was on the floor waiting for the ambulance to come. I called my orthopedic surgeon, who's a good friend of mine, because he's fixed both of my shoulders. He's done my knee. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I says, this is what happened. What are we going to do? He says, well, you get home, we'll get you fixed up. I called my PT. I says, this is what happened. What do you think? He says, you need to go to the doctors and see what's happening.
Get it checked out.
What do we do? Called you, told you what's happened. And then next thing you know, they finally got my legs out because they were folded up underneath me.
Yeah.
And they're like, don't look. I'm like, I'm looking, and both of my kneecaps were literally sideways. So I had little pup tents on the top of my legs, and I'm going, oh, this is really bad.
This is not good. Yeah. Not good.
Never passed out, never screamed, never swore, didn't say a word.
Were you in shock, you think, with that?
I'm sure I was in shock, but it was just like one of those things. The odd thing is, it didn't hurt.
That is strange.
And what they told me is when you completely sever those tendons, the nerves are disconnected. So there's nothing.
Interesting.
They got me to the hospital, however. In the ER, the doctor says, let's put braces on him and stand him up and send him home. So they put braces on both of my legs and stood me up. I screamed bloody because everything retracted. You know what I mean? You stand up and your brain says, fire the muscles.
Wait. The doctor said, put some braces and stand him up. We'll send him home.
Yep.
What was he thinking?
He was so out of his league
that's ridiculous.
My wife wanted to kill him.
Yeah.
My wife wanted to kill him. And if I could have, I probably would have.
Well, at that moment, man, it's like that.
We got, they propped me up like Frankenstein off the bed, nerves fired, muscles contracted, pain hit. And it was, I'm going down. I'm going to pass out now. They got me laid down.
Yeah.
And he said, well, that's not going to work.
Well,
like,
no crap. Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That's, I would have been so
And that's
angry.
when my wife called Dr. Adams, my orthopedic, and said, who is here? Can you come out and do this? We started reaching out to resources, and we found an NFL knee guy who was up in the neighborhood. And so I was injured on Saturday, and God, I wish I could remember his name because he did a fantastic job. Came in and met me once, wheeled me into surgery, did a fantastic job.
Yeah, because you got it fixed, right?
I got it fixed there. Yeah, and I got hurt on Saturday, and I went home on Thursday, And that's a whole nother story because you can't try to get on a plane when you can't bend your knees.
Dude, horrible. I remember the pictures, right? Because you got, what was it, like a whole row?
Whole row,
right?
yep.
Sitting sideways. Sitting sideways.
And, you know, the airline people were like, you can't have your feet in the aisle. I'm like, they have to be in the aisle because my
it's
legs
not like
are longer
I can
than
move my legs right now. Unbelievable, man.
And then we flew from Nashville to Dallas. And in Dallas, they took me off the plane, put me, I had to switch planes. They dumped me out of the wheelchair.
They you did tell me that. I was,
But thank God I was I was so messed up on pain meds, I didn't feel a thing.
Sure.
It was
but still, it's like it could, it just got fixed. You can't break it at that moment.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was don't bend your knees for 7 weeks.
Yeah.
So the doctor in Kentucky who took care of my knees did a great job. He transferred it off to my ortho at home. My ortho came and saw me at home. My PT came and saw me at home. We got home on Thursday. I think I had PT on Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
We were doing BFR.
That's
literally
great. Yep.
a week after the injury. So we were on the road to recovery, and it was like, call everybody under the sun, find out what we do to make this the best result possible.
Sure.
And he said, number one, don't bend your knees because what do they call it? Scar stretching or something like that. If the scar gets opened up, it's not as strong. So if you bend your knees, scar gapping, I think is what it's called. Don't bend your knees. I didn't bend my knees for 7 weeks.
And
I was like, everyone's like, are you ever going to compete again? I'm like, you doggone right I am.
Yeah.
There was never a question whether I would get back and be good again.
Yeah.
It was like, whatever I have to do to get over this obstacle, we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think it was 8 weeks I was down here.
I know. And I was also when you said you were going to drive, you're like, I'm like, dude, I don't know if this is a great idea. Like, what if you have to slam on the brakes or something, like something too much, right? But you came.
It was a horrible idea. There was no question it was a horrible idea.
Yes, I thought it was. I also thought it was. Yeah. I mean, hey, whatever.
But let's think about that though. Back when I got hurt and we started to rehab, I think it was 3 weeks after the injury, I was literally back in the gym.
Yeah.
Because
I remember Joel put you, didn't you ride in the back of that?
Back in Yukon, yep.
Just cart me there, like I'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yep.
But see, again, it's that mental outlet, right? Like, and just getting back in there, it was so good. And, for your mental state, right?
Huge.
Just being able to do something, if anything, right?
Yeah, 'cause the PT and the BFR were huge though. We started on my calves, started on my hamstrings. And I'll tell you what, if you haven't done BFR and you're listening out there, it is a great tool.
Oh, it's massive.
Right?
Yeah.
Huge.
I love it. Yeah.
I didn't lose as much as I thought I would and recovered faster because of it.
Yeah. That's huge, man. I mean, it's just, but what's the mentality, like and obviously you're out of it now and it's in the past. And a lot of times it's hard to, put yourself back in that situation exactly. But, in 7 weeks, it's like, all right, well, everything is a challenge now. Going to the bathroom's a massive challenge.
God.
I mean, it's just like all of it.
Oh, yeah.
All of the stuff you take for granted that it's like, just let me hop up and just go here and do that. Nope, you're not doing it.
You go from, someone like me who's completely independent, self-driven, everything, to 100% dependent.
Yes.
You want to be humbled? That'll humble you. You know what I mean?
Because
I relied on my wife for everything.
Yeah.
Literally everything. And the funny part is like our house is a split level, so it has stairs. They're like, how are you going to get in the house? I says, we'll figure it out. Get me home. Mm-hmm. I went up the stairs like Gumby. You know what I mean? Didn't just waddled right and left. Yeah. And every little challenge, it's like whatever it presented itself, there's a solution. You just got to be willing to look for it. I didn't ever lay in bed and feel sorry for myself. I should say there were probably 3 or 4 days when I got home while I was on my pity pot.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, this is awful. What am I going to do? But not crying, but going, shit, I'm really up against this.
Well, the reality sets in of like, this is what I've got in front of me.
And then by the end of that week, it was like, okay, let's one step at a time, whatever it is, let's get better today, a little bit better tomorrow. And, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't leave the house. I was literally stuck in bed for, 10 days.
Yeah.
Got on Amazon, ordered books, started reading and studying sports psychology because I was trying to figure out how the hell can I be this mentally tough?
Yep.
And I didn't understand, how I had developed those skills, and I've heard it throughout my life, but I don't believe it. You know what I mean? Because it's just, that's the way it is. You know what I mean? Am I different? I guess so. I wanted to know why I was that way. You know what I mean? So I started studying all the sports psychology books, and man, did I learn a lot. And I literally read I watched a little bit of binge crap on TV.
Sure.
When the pain meds were on, it's hard to focus.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's just like kind of drool on yourself, lay in bed.
Yeah.
And when you have a moment of clarity, sit up and read.
Yeah.
And that's what I did.
Yeah. See, that's, I mean, but again, you're making use of the time,
Yep.
right? Like the best that you possibly can. And I know that I would be the same way. It would be like, I'm going to find something.
Oh, for sure.
As an outlet,
Yep.
right? Because if I'm reading, I'm getting better mentally.
Yep.
Right. Physically, I may be challenged right now, but like, okay, let's sharpen up the brain. Let's get better at something, So it's such a fascinating, thing to go through an injury, a setback, right? Like, but it's how do you deal with it? And then what do you get out of it on the back end? And it's I mean, I know for me, like watching you go through that and dealing with it was like, all right, well, Steve's down. He's going through this. Like he's got to come back from it. And then, I mean, it's like this commitment. Cause I think it literally was 8 weeks around that point, like where I was genuinely concerned of, here we got up on the screen, just you in the gym.
Oh my God.
A little bit right there. So that would have been like only a few weeks into it.
That would have been probably that picture is probably the first trip back at the gym, probably 10 or 12 days.
Getting it in.
Yep. Yeah, because the first weekend there was no going to the, you know what I mean?
And with those braces, you couldn't
didn't bend, the blocks were so that my legs could stay and not have any stress on the quad tendon, so they stayed completely straight. I'll tell you what, that felt so good getting to the gym that day.
I bet.
Oh my God.
See, that's cool, man.
Yep.
That's it's just one of those things where like getting in there mentally, you probably, again, not that we would take it for granted, but like right now I could get up and walk in the gym, no problem. Right.
It gives you a new perspective on life and what's important, right?
Exactly.
What's cool, if you know as well as I do, training the adaptive athletes in the Crown Mountain that we used to put on, adaptive athletes have a special mental fortitude. I was put in that place. It was only temporary,
sure,
but I was in that place where these adaptive athletes live daily.
Yep.
And it changed my perspective on how they approach the tasks and how they train. And I'm like, we got it easy because literally tomorrow I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to walk down the stairs. You know what I mean?
Yes.
A guy who's AK or BK below the knee amputee, they don't have that option and they have to figure it out every day.
Every single day.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, and I would echo that, man. It's like being around those people is very motivating.
For sure.
Right? Like, and especially for somebody who is driven, and it's like, well, now I have to put myself in your spot and say, hey, if your legs are gone, every single day you have to deal with that. Mm-hmm. Right? Like I might wake up and be sore, but I can also stand up.
It'll get better.
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to get better.
It's a different mentality.
Yeah. So it's a different thing, but like a lot of them by and large, have this positive aura, right? Like it's like, well, and they're grateful. A lot of them I've talked to, they're grateful for, whatever they've gone through. It's like, well, now this is what I've a lot of them accept it, but also on the flip side, I know that it is massively challenging, right? Like, and it can take its toll as well.
Yep.
Right. So it's like for some of the, and maybe have caught them in great moments and it's like, hey, I'm getting to do a contest, for example, I'm out here, I'm having a great time and having fun, and they're inspiring a ton of people, which they maybe realize or don't realize, but it's, you get perspective in life, right? Like, and I think that's important for a lot of different people. And, you're talking about being humbled. I think everybody gets humbled at some point with something, right? Like you think, as soon as you think you're invincible or something's not going to go wrong, it goes wrong.
The universe says otherwise.
Yeah,
right?
And you learn from it, and then you're even more, grateful for small things, right? Like, so, it's one of those things where it gives you perspective.
Yep.
It can give a reality check, and then also perspective. But it's like, being grateful, then you get back in that type of mindset. right? And it's like, all right, well, I'm grateful for this because I can do this, I can do that. And it gets better. Like you said, the small incremental increases in getting better, even with a horrific injury, like it will get better over time, right? And then like you come back from that, and then I would argue that you're even more mentally strong because you've been through that. Like adversity causes you to gain that.
Well, let's talk about hard, because hard is relative, right? You know what I mean? If you're at a certain level, a W amputee,
Sure.
what's hard for them today might not be hard tomorrow. You know what I mean? So if you look back from where you came from, you go, that was really hard, but I made it through. And now what's the next? You know what I mean? It's like climbing a mountain. Let's get to the bigger mountain.
Sure.
And life is a journey. So it's every mountain that we have to overcome.
Big time.
And if you think it's hard, it is hard.
Yeah.
But if you get through it, it's not hard anymore, right? Because you've done it. You've succeeded.
Yeah. And I think that this is like, a lot of the talks that we've had in the gym around training, whatever type of contest prep, whatever things, that have been going on. I think it's this, I guess it's like, it's this relationship that we've had, but it's like, it's just kind of, being able to be on that same type of wavelength where you're thinking like, all right, well, here's the mission. We're going to find a way. We're going to figure it out. It's going to be great. And it's just kind of this positive type of thing. And a lot of times that's where, it's where our conversations have gone, is like, you have perspective, right? And talk about different challenges and overcome them and going through it. But then in the end, like you look at it and it's a lot of times the journey, right? The journey of getting there, right? So, and I think that that's where, I looking back at a lot of the stuff from different time periods, and whether it's from training or competing or whatever, like you start to get a perspective of like, hey, yes, the contest or the result was great or whatever, that's wonderful, but a lot of the journey to get there, those type of moments, which at the time you don't even realize, like you're growing, you're getting better, you're doing all these different things through that journey to get to that end goal. That's where a lot of the growth happens, and where a lot of the truly, I guess, beautiful moments come from, is that journey. So the journey of life, or journey that you put yourself on, and the more challenges that you accept, embrace, and take on, the more your journey becomes even more interesting.
Well, and then the stories afterwards, it's that process. It's not necessarily the product at the end. It's the process to make that product, because that's the fun part, right? Because that's when you're mixing all the ingredients, you're doing all the experimenting. It's like, how do we make this thing? We want to build whatever it is, a world champion. How do we get there? It's like this little piece, that little piece. The end product is just kind of the glorious part. Does it matter? Yeah, but is it as important as the journey? No, to me, the process is far more important. And that's where the pleasure is, because I like the process, because it's like, that's where all the challenges. The contest is when you put on all that hard work on display. It's in the gym where we're discovering what are we capable of. And truly, we never know what we're capable of if we don't keep increasing that level of challenge, right?
Big time. Yeah. So what is next for you? You say you need this, like you're in this moment right now where you kind of need that goal. Like I'm sure that you've done some thinking about it. Like, I mean, what's coming up? Like, on your radar, let's put it that way.
On the radar is another bodybuilding contest. I really want to compete in strongman again, but every time I really start to get to that 100% comfort zone where I'm training at 100% or 100% effort. I don't mean 100% of max of anything.
Sure.
I mean effort. My body goes, excuse me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it says, do you really, should you do this? That's the question to ask. And my brain says, well, no. But bodybuilding, and I just had this conversation 2 weeks ago with a kid who was in the same kind of boat, bad back surgeries, this and that. I says, strongman is not for you, but bodybuilding is, because it's more about volume and feel.
Sure.
I can do bodybuilding because I can go to feel and not injure anything.
Sure.
So I'm seriously thinking, I turned 60 in 2 years.
Okay.
I competed to win Mr. Colorado over 50. and did, right?
Yep.
So now it's like, let's do it at 60.
At 60.
Because I did.
So here's a bodybuilding picture. This is good.
Well, and that's where we started. That was January 1, the picture on the right. You know, it was like 245 pounds. Totally content eating whatever I wanted.
I don't remember you ever looking like that.
On the left?
No,
or on the right?
No. Oh. The like out of shape picture.
Well, but it's probably the least flattering photo you could ever have. You know what I mean?
You probably were like pushing your stomach out a little bit to make it look.
It could have been.
That wasn't a super good look, Steve. Yeah,
right,
this is better.
Yes,
this is better.
Yep, and that's like 2 weeks out or a week out,
and that would have been in and around 2020, right?
Yep.
Okay, so getting back there,
and that picture there is 1989.
That's awesome.
That's my second contest. I finished second place, and at that point I was absolutely hooked. There was no question. It's like, I like this stuff.
Yeah.
I really do. Yep.
So you're pushing more toward that, like 60. Get on stage at 60. Is that kind of in the back of your head, like for a longer term?
Yeah, no question. I want to go back and I want to win Colorado Masters 60. No question. But my other goal is when I turn 60, I want to run either the New York or the Boston Marathon. And I want to do that because it goes back to that mindset. Running is not hard.
Yeah.
Allowing yourself to run that far is hard. And not allowing yourself, but telling yourself you're going to do it, right? Because that's the difference. It's like, can I do this? Yeah. Am I willing to do this? That's the question.
Those are two, you realize those are two very different things, right?
Polar opposites.
Okay.
Polar opposites. But that mental thing of the running, there's a euphoria that you get to somewhere in there. Because I did a lot of running in the early ages of playing football and in between some stuff that you can't quite duplicate because it doesn't hurt.
Sure.
You mean your feet ache a little bit and this and that, your back might get sore. Yeah. But it's that mental place that you have to go, and it's like, I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
And I don't care. When
is that going to come? When is that going to
It'll probably be 62, 63 is my guess.
Okay.
So it's probably 4 years out because I got to do bodybuilding, and then it's going to be a transformation to shed some weight.
Of course.
And just start booking it. But the other side of it is maybe I won't shed any weight. I'll just do it to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which will probably be hard because I'm one of those people like you. It's 100% all in or not in at all, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Just to say I ran a marathon, you know what I mean?
Yes.
When in between bodybuilding and the beginning of football, I used to run the mountains, and there's a place called Hanging Lake. It's like 1.2 miles, 1,000 feet of vertical. I used to run it every Sunday, and then I started to run it for time.
Okay.
And I don't know, now everyone has all this crazy tracker stuff on it and all that. But I could literally run 1,000 feet of vertical, 2.4 miles or 2.5 miles in 17 minutes. And when you go up there one day, it's the least friendly footing you can ever imagine.
Sure. So every step is
100% out of control on the way down.
Yeah. I bet.
It was awesome. And when you get down, you just go, I did that.
Yeah.
Just like your 1,000-pound deadlifts. Every time you did those, now when you look back, I did that. Those are things that no one else could ever possibly, well, very few, I should say, would have one attempt and two be successful at.
Yeah. I mean, it's some of those things are certainly accomplishments. It's rare, right? Mm-hmm. Like to be in. So, I mean, that's wild, man. It's like, I mean, those are two, big things.
If they start a Masters 60, I'll go for the strongman. There's no question. I don't know how we'll do it, but we'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
It's just, the bugger is I don't have anything to prove.
Yes.
But I need that challenge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's if your body, and the thing is, it's it's good in a way. It's like you can still do things that your body allows you to do, right? And I think it's just finding a challenge within that parameter,
the operating parameter. Sure.
Yeah, that works, and then it's still stimulating to you mentally, right, and physically, obviously. But it's like one of these things where it's like, well, I can go after this, and I could do that, And I think that anybody who is goal driven like that, can understand. It's like it's different, and those are two very different things. I mean, I'm trying to think of Steve the runner like
Yeah,
just
you're
like,
right.
you know, this
Well,
guy that's going to run a marathon, you know, but you could do it, whatever.
Think about the Shaw Classic.
Yeah.
We literally run a marathon every day doing that contest.
Oh, it's crazy.
Right?
You know,
know,
it's crazy. Yeah.
So without all the other stuff and all the noise, marathon's probably easy, right?
Well, yeah, because you don't
In
have
comparison.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, mentally, it's you just have to accept it, right? You'd have to accept it. There obviously would be some training, but it's being able to tolerate that and then get in your head and say, hey, you know what? We're not like the kettlebell swings, right?
Yep.
Like, when are you going to stop? Because everything is telling you in your head, this sucks. This is horrible. I can't do anymore. I don't know if I can move. All of that, but it's like digging into that and say, you know what? There's another one. So it'd be the same thing with that type of thing. Is, hey, I can do another mile. I could do another half mile. I could
do another step. Yep.
Yeah, I can keep going, and then you get to that, and it's like, well, I'll find a little bit more in the tank. You know, so it's kind of that type of mentality, you know. But it would be a massive, you know, challenge, which is what you like, right? So I mean, it makes sense. I'm not
those kettlebells were awful, by the way. But think about how much growth every one of us accomplished by doing that every time.
Yep.
I mean, I remember the one of passing out. Waking up, you like, no, you're done. I'll do the rest of yours. I went, no, you won't.
Yeah.
And I did the rest. You know, I think it was like 10 or 11 left.
Yep.
Stood up and kept going. But I got better. You know what I mean? That made me stronger, because every time you push the limit gets further out, right?
Big time.
And that's the only way we get better is take that limit, stretch it. Take that limit, new limit, stretch it again, right?
Again, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's, when we were talking earlier, I was thinking about keg press and passing out. You know, we've all passed out training, but if you don't go there, or you're shy from going to where things, you know, when the margins start to close in, things get dark.
Sure.
And next thing you know, you're out. If you never go to that place, you'll never reach your max capacity, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to push that limit to the extreme to get that limit to expand a little bit more.
Sure.
And that's beautiful.
I don't know if everybody has passed out. I don't know if that's a fair statement to say, hey, we've all passed out. You know, you got to be a little bit of a different animal to kind of go to that level. But I front carries for me was always the Conan's wheel, like that, because the air would go, right? So it's kind of like, you know, you got to go to where you are willing to pass out. Like it's you're gonna go there. It's just how far can you go before that happens, that kind of thing. So
I passed out on front carry at the Olympia at the Master Nationals is a great one. Literally, I think I finished third in that event because I was not stopping.
Sure.
And it's like, I couldn't see, couldn't hear. And it's like, keep stepping. And there's a video, all of a sudden the bag and me go flopping on the floor.
Sure.
That was the end of it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to go to those distances to see what there is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And to me, it's beautiful. Is it scary? I don't think of it as scary.
Yeah.
So many people are shy away from it, but it's like, you don't know how far you can go until you're willing to go to the edge and then a little bit further.
Yeah. Just figure it out, man. Test that. Well, I think those things are going to test you. I'm excited to see like how that turns out. So,
oh my God. It's not that much of a stretch, though. You know what I mean? It really isn't.
Well, you've done it, not the marathon, but you've done the bodybuilding before, so you kind of know. And I know when you're locked in on that, like it's fun for you.
Oh my God!
Right? So it's like you know it's a challenge, and you know obviously dialing in the diet and the training and you know everything. It becomes a mission, and then you are training.
Yep.
You are training for that outcome,
for a goal.
And I think that's where, you know, for you, it's where you feel alive, right? It's like, I'm ready to go, you know? So it's kind of, you know, I think that there's a lot of power in that, like, you know, feeling alive and going after something and, you know, having a challenge in front of you. So,
well, and at my age now in the later years, I want to show the next generation of what's possible.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourself because society says, oh, you know, you're 40. Oh, you're 50. You can't do this. Oh, you're sick. You really should be sitting on the couch watching TV eating bonbons. That's not happening. And if I can bring some people with me, there's a huge payoff in that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I tell people all the time, movement is medicine.
Yes.
You stop moving, you know, there's bad things going to happen. And then once the bad things start happening, how do you stop them?
Yeah.
So let's keep moving and going. You know what I mean? See what's next.
Love it, brother. Well, this has been fun, man. Definitely been fun.
My God, it's been a blast.
The journey will continue.
Oh, no question, right? On to bigger and better things.
Love it.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you enjoyed it, want to share it, I would appreciate that. It helps to get the podcast out to more people. But give Steve some love in the comments. And hope you're all doing amazing. For now, going to be great. We'll check you guys later. If you enjoyed this podcast episode and would like to listen to another, click right here. And to stay informed about new podcast episodes, click here to subscribe.